that said, I'd like to introduce Miss Susan Bittersmith. And Susan was in Washington last week while we were talking to Russ Jones, the representative from District 24, and she was talking to people in Congress about the thing that we're going to talk about after the break, which are the barriers to success to small businesses, which are all those wonderful, wonderful business regulations out there that we have to lug around in this big damn wheelbarrow and try to not only get on with what we're doing, but satisfy all these crazy-ass regulations that we have to look at. So when we come back from the break, we'll talk to Susan about that. And, well, are we at the break, Mr. Wayne? I guess we are. So when we come back, Miss Susan Bittersmith, and we'll be talking about the wonderful business regulations. You're listening to KFNX News Talk Radio 1100. Welcome back, Phoenix, Clarity from Chaos. I'm Dave Campbell, CEO of Campbell Management Consulting. We're here every Monday evening from 7 to 8 on News Talk Radio, KFNX 1100. Pardon my yawn.
A little tired there?
Pardon my yawn. It's been a long day. And I know we're fighting against the Final Four game, too. So we're really swimming upstream tonight. Anyway, if you'd like to join the show, and I hope you do, it's 602-277-5369 or toll free. It is 1-866-536-1100. And like I said before the break, we have Miss Susan Bittersmith with us tonight.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. Glad to be back again.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. I'm just still disappointed over the outcome.
Well, me too, but, things happen for a reason. I'm not quite sure what that is, but it gave me the opportunity to go back to D.C. last week and do what you were advocating, which is to take things in your own hands and try to change things.
And based on what's going on right now, that's probably a better thing anyway, because the ones that were elected don't seem to be doing anything right now.
Well, I'm still waiting for that magic revolution we were promised by new House members. I'm hoping it's coming, but in the interim, we have all kinds of things that are looming and going to be implemented here shortly under Obamacare and other regulations that were passed by the previous Congress that have yet to be unraveled and unramped. And those of us like you and I that run small businesses are going to be in trouble if we don't get those fixed.
Well, let's go over some of them. The latest thing that I got from Heritage was, business just regulations in general that are you and I are fighting is like $8,000 a year just in the regulations.
Well, and it could be increasing. You and I were talking in the break about something that's coming as a result of Obamacare that has nothing really to do with health care, but has huge implications not only for small business but large business.
Yep.
One of the provisions, allegedly unintended, although you have to wonder, because it has a funding connection to it, was that every business under Obamacare will now have to report any expenditure, cumulative expenditure of $600 or more to any one vendor with a 1099 form, which historically has been used for independent contractors in a way of collecting taxes and those folks that are working independently, which makes sense. Yep. But now, under the new provisions of Obamacare, in the next year, if my little small business buys more than $600 from Costco, and I guarantee you we do, we buy paper from there.
Or Staples.
Or Dunkin' Donuts, or I do a meeting at a hotel, or the cleaning service, or the person that comes in and fixes my computers, or, any of those kinds of things that up until this point didn't have to file a 1099. I will have to do that now. And if I fail to do that, I have penalties. And the genesis behind this was to collect additional revenues on taxes they weren't collecting, supposedly, to make up the difference to pay for a component of new provisions for health care, reform health care provision. The problem with all of this, of course, is that the headaches for the small mom-and-pop shop, paperwork-wise, are horrendous. And if you inadvertently fail to report and then you're captured on the other end by doing a check on a credit card transaction, or the Costco's of the world who have large corporate entities to report things, then you're in trouble. and it makes absolute sense. Now, here's the ironic thing, is all members of Congress now on both sides, including the President, acknowledge the 1099 reporting issue is something that shouldn't have happened. It was inadvertent and needs to be repealed. But we sit here today in April, and it hasn't been done yet. The House passed a bill to repeal it. The Senate passed a bill to repeal it. But the bills don't match, and they can't come to an agreement on how to match the bills. Without having a matching piece of legislation, it can't go to the White House and it can't get signed. And so we're fiddling while Rome is burning because we don't have that solution enacted. And it still isn't there. So last week, our message on behalf of a bunch of small businesses across the country was stop fiddling, just sit down and work out the differences, because the difference in the bills are where they make up the differential on the money that was supposed to come from those reporting to pay for health care. Bigger issue, if you repealed provisions of Obamacare, you wouldn't need to have that additional income and you wouldn't have this problem. So
right.
That's the first issue on the list.
Oh, my. Yeah, the whole 1099 thing, and for you folks out there that have, say, just for example, you run a small beauty shop, and you get your supplies. It's anybody that needs supplies to produce a service, whether it's paper for your printer because you're writing
or ink cartridges or any of those items.
And $600 is nothing over a year's period of time, even a couple of months, depending on what you do in particular. You churn through pretty quickly. No question.
And just the cost of paperwork, anybody who runs a business knows, is astronomical. I mean, there's sort of a sidebar to this, too. There's a tax return called the 990, which the 501c6 community has to file, which are the not-for-profit, but they're trade group. They pay taxes. It's like my little trade group. It's a C6. We pay taxes in a different capacity. But that 990 form is so complicated now for the same reason, to try to catch additional income that is taxable, that I used to be able to do those tax returns myself, or my admin and I did them together. Neither one of us, and I'm reasonably educated as she is on the financial side, we're going to have to hire an accountant to do it. So the cost of me doing business is incrementally increased, and I guarantee you it will not return 1 penny more to the United States government or to the state of Arizona. It's a ridiculous form.
Well, it makes me wonder, now that you mention accountants, I'm just sitting here wondering, how many accountants? I mean, because every day we come up with these little nuggets that nobody knew about. I don't know how an accountant today, if I went to my CPA next week and started talking about this issue, I don't know that she would even be familiar with it.
And you're right, because as I was working through this whole 990 form, and that's not everybody in the world has that same problem.
Right.
We do have an accountant that certifies my statements so that the people I work for know that everything that's in the account's in the account. I called him and said, okay, I'm working through some of these back channel questions in the 990, none of which have to do with revenue, by the way. They all have to do with operational questions. It's a way of the government collecting more information about what I do in a day-to-day business with my membership and my clients. Again, it's not a revenue stream. It's an information gathering venture. And he had to say, I don't know. I have no idea.
Right.
So even if he would have to go out and educate himself, obviously, as he should, on my nickel. So the cost of doing business is incrementally increased for me, which gets passed down to my clients, or in other cases, other customers.
Right.
And in today's economic environment, never a good idea.
No. Well, that's just one. So when your group who were you speaking to?
We were meeting with members of Congress and or their staff. Now, I did not have this problem in Arizona. Members are willing to set up meetings. But I heard from some of my counterparts across the country that some of the new freshmen were not taking any meetings with anybody. They were too busy to meet with constituents. And I found that a little disheartening, because that's not what the message was, that I thought were new members of Congress were coming in and being unwilling, to meet with members. But I will tell you, I was frustrated with what I heard, and it wasn't just Arizona. We were meeting with members across the country, as I explained, and I'll take the 1099 issue for an example, where I'd say, here's the issue, and then say, well, we did our job. We passed our bill. That's great, but it's not completed yet. You cannot walk away when the mission is not done.
Right.
Just because you as a senator or you as a House passed your version, my problem isn't fixed yet. I need you to take the next step to show initiative and help get this completed, the mission done, and to the president's desk, because he's on record, amazingly, on record saying he's going to sign it. Get it done. Get it to him. And I didn't get the right answers back about showing that next step of leadership. It's, oh, well, out of my hands now.
Well, that quite frankly, is a little disheartening, because I think the message in 2010 was pretty clear. Even for my little pea brain, I thought it was pretty clear what the new class was sent to Washington to do.
I thought so too, and I still hope that it will happen.
It's obviously fluoride in the water in D.C. or something.
And maybe we're just kind of all learning, and I'm still open to giving the benefit of the doubt. But time is running short, and many of these things need to happen. And we've got a drop dead on Friday, and the government being operational or not. I mean, to me, there's some obvious answers there, too, and I will be curious to see what happens with this new breed in Washington. Will they stick to their guns and do what they said they were going to do?
Yeah. I mean, as far as letting the government hang up the "we're closed today" sign, I don't. Quite frankly, I don't see the issue, and I don't see the argument with just letting it go and getting on with this. I mean, when you're nibbling around the edges, I just don't see the point.
And I think clearly the man on the street would say, "Great, let them shut down. They'll stop doing things to me.
They'll leave me. They'll leave me alone.
Yeah. They won't be moving forward on this."
Right, and there's not a household in this country that doesn't know how to balance a checkbook. I just don't understand how these educated individuals can't figure out that if you have $1 coming in, you can't spend $2 without a problem.
And that clearly has been the message. And again, consistent with your earlier point, if all we do is complain about it and don't do something to fix it, and that's partly what we were trying to do last week, is saying, okay, we are here to make this work and get it fixed. And if you're not going to do it, then we're going to have to start raising a ruckus and
and quite frankly, Susan, I think that's where this is right now. Is clearly the message was sent, but for some reason it hasn't really. The two connecting synapses in the brain haven't come together or something. I'm not sure, and I think just the collective voice of the United States, at least the 70% or so of the United States, not the 20 or 30% that are running around on the edges or something. But I just think they need to get their collective voices together and say, enough of this.
Now's our chance.
Yeah, we're tired of this. We've listened to it. We've put up with it, but no more. And I think the Tea Party, God bless them all, are doing a good job. And I just think it's time to dial it up another notch.
And many of them are, at least the Tea Party groups I'm familiar with in the state of Arizona, many of them are ratcheting up that we want an explanation. You promised, now deliver. Yeah,
and like we talked about before the break, even our own representatives that clearly got the message when we voted in 2010, they were still basically went present on the last continuing resolution. When we come back, more with Susan on business regulations. I'm Dave Campbell, CEO of Campbell Management Consulting. You're listening to Clarity from Chaos on KFNX News.